This year, I went into Songdung, which is the world's largest cave. It's this massive opening, 6 miles of underground cave.
Hello?
Someone from the team discovered a doorway that leads to one of these caves. The more they dug, the more they found.
Ancient underground cities are full of mystery, legends, and dark secrets. From hidden lairs where dark rituals took place to criminal underworlds full of human corpses. These are ancient underground cities that were sealed to keep the evil inside. The Hellfire Caves are a series of man-made tunnels and caverns in Buckinghamshire, England, stretching about 260 meters underground. The caves were created in the 18th century and were used by a secretive club founded by Sir Francis Dashwood, which included influential figures like William Hogarth and John Wilkes. Though Benjamin Franklin wasn't a member, he was also a close friend of Dashwood and visited the caves several times. Apparently. The club operated under various names, such as the Brotherhood of St. Francis Wycombe and the Order of the Friars of St. Francis of West Wycombe. Their motto, "Do what thou wilt," kinda hints at their hedonistic lifestyle. Members were rumored to engage in these wild, pagan-like rituals. They were said to hold feasts that included excessive drinking and debauchery. Locals would gossip about the devil worshipping supposedly going on down there. Some even whispered about them practicing human sacrifices. By the early 1760s, the club had faded away, but urban legends about the caves continued. One of the most popular stories involves the ghost of Suki, a young maid who was accidentally killed during a prank. People also claim to have seen her ghost wandering the caves. Another legend mentions the spirit of Paul Whitehead, a former steward of the Hellfire Club, who's also said to haunt the tunnels. The Edinburgh Vaults, also known as the South Bridge Vaults, are a series of chambers beneath the South Bridge in Edinburgh, Scotland. This bridge was built in the late 18th century, completed in 1788, and originally served as a way to connect different parts of the city. For about 30 years, the vaults were used for different businesses. There were taverns and workshops for cobblers, but the vaults were never properly sealed against water, which meant they began to flood soon after opening. By 1795, businesses started abandoning the space, and the vaults quickly became a hangout for homeless and criminals. Illegal gambling dens started cropping up, and there were even rumors that body snatchers started stashing corpses down there. As the Industrial Revolution changed the landscape of Edinburgh, the area nearby turned into a slum, and the vaults then became cramped living quarters for many poor families. The conditions were horrible, as you can imagine. I mean, living in a tiny room with 10 other people, no sunlight, and a stench that combined stale waste with fish oil lamps. It's no wonder robberies and killings became so common. The vaults were eventually closed down as early as 1835 or as late as 1875. And they were mostly forgotten until the 1980s, when a former Scottish rugby player, Norrie Rowan, stumbled on a tunnel leading to them. Norrie helped a Romanian rugby player escape from the secret police through this very tunnel during the Romanian Revolution. I want to know more about that, but that's probably another video. The Paris Catacombs are, of course, one of the most famous underground sites in the world, and they definitely have a reputation for being a little creepy. Beneath the city of Paris lies a vast network of tunnels and chambers filled with the bones of over 6 million people. It's one of the most macabre tourist destinations in the world, but most of the tunnels are off limits, with many believing they were sealed off to keep something sinister contained. The catacombs started out as limestone quarries in the late 18th century, but when Paris's cemeteries started getting overcrowded and then started causing health issues, city officials decided to move some of the bones underground. They transferred remains from several different graveyards into these tunnels, stacking them up, kind of creating these artistic displays of skulls and femurs. Urban legends say that the catacombs are haunted, that lost spirits roam the tunnels. And not just the spirits of people who are interred here, but people who have wandered too far into the catacombs and never found their way out again. Nushabad underground city, located near the town of Nushabad in Iran, is a site that dates back to the Sasanian area, around 5th century CE. It's a massive underground complex that stretches over 3 kilometers and is made of a series of tunnels, chambers, and passageways that were used for different purposes. There were living quarters, storage, and places of worship. The city was carved out of the soft volcanic rock, making it easier to create intricate designs and rooms. What's really intriguing is that Nushabad was built not just for shelter, but as a refuge from invaders. When threats loomed above ground, residents could escape into the subterranean labyrinth, which was cool and dark, perfect for hiding out. But here's where it gets a little creepy. Some say that the tunnels were also used to house prisoners, and that eerie happenings have been reported by those who've ventured down there. As the story goes, some believe that the spirits of those who were imprisoned still linger in the shadows. The Terracotta Army, discovered in 1974 by a group of farmers digging a well in China, is an incredible archaeological find and a source of some pretty spooky legends. The massive pit is filled with thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots, all made over 2,000 years ago to protect the tomb of King Shi Huang, China's first emperor. The idea was that these clay warriors would accompany him into the afterlife and fend off any threats. And many scholars believe that the Terracotta Army was never meant to be seen by the living. For centuries, it was just a myth, hidden away beneath the earth. The emperor's followers worked for more than 36 years to create this elaborate tomb, and the fact that it was disturbed has led to tales about the massive underground tomb being haunted. After the discovery, things turned dark for the farmers. Apparently, their village was relocated due to the increased attention from archaeologists and tourists, and many of them faced hardships like illnesses and financial trouble. In the pits surrounding the warriors, skeletal remains were also found, including those of women who were thought to be the emperor's concubines for the afterlife. This has led to even more rumors about the site being cursed. Toiming Cave, also called the Cave of the Twins, is located in a nature reserve in Israel, right on the edge of the Jerusalem mountains. The cave is pretty interesting because it's packed with archaeological finds from different times in history. Researchers have found human bones, old weapons, and coin hoards in there. There's also evidence that the cave had an alabaster quarry dating back to the Middle Bronze Age, but what's really cool is that it might have been used for necromancy rituals during the late Roman period. Between 2010 and 2016, archaeologists found over 120 intact oil lamps inside this cave. Most of these lamps are from the 2nd to 4th centuries CE, and they were purposely placed in narrow crevices along the walls or under debris. Some spots had clusters of these oil lamps mixed in with weapons, pottery from earlier times, and even human skulls. This all hints that the cave could have been used for rituals related to communicating with the dead. The idea is that people were lighting these lamps to connect with spirits of the underworld, trying to talk to the deceased or predict the future. It turns out using caves for rituals was a common practice back in the Roman and Byzantine days. Historical texts even mention cases of witch trials happening in caves like this. Beneath the streets of Columbia, South Carolina, there's a mysterious network of catacombs, and no one really knows for sure what they were built for. These eerie tunnels are completely off limits to the public. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Columbia was booming and extra space was needed, so a series of passages and rooms were constructed under the city. Now, initially intended for practical uses like storage, as time went on, the stories about these catacombs started to shift. They started being used during Prohibition for bootlegging operations or to stash away stolen goods, but the legends didn't even stop there. There are even darker tales that the catacombs may have been used for more sinister things like secret rituals or hideouts for some of the worst criminals in the city. And then you have the fact that nowadays these tunnels are sealed off. A lot of it's off limits, and a lot of them remain unexplored. So, what could be lurking down there? Beneath the streets of Rome lies a vast labyrinth of tunnels and chambers known as the Catacombs. These ancient burial sites date back to the 2nd century and served as the final resting place for early Christians, Jews, and various minority groups during the Roman Empire. While they may not be your typical underground city, the sheer scale and history make them really cool. The catacombs are divided into several key areas, including the Catacombs of San Callisto, the Catacombs of San Sebastiano, and the Catacombs of Priscilla. Each of these locations has intricate tombs adorned with all these beautiful frescoes and sculptures, giving you a bit of a glimpse into the beliefs and lives of those who are buried there. Some of the artworks depict biblical scenes. Others have symbols of faith reflecting the hope of resurrection in a time of persecution. As you wander through these narrow passageways, the atmosphere can feel eerie, no doubt. And there are miles of tunnels filled with the remains of over 1 million people, so that definitely adds to the creep factor. Some legends say that the catacombs are haunted, with whispers of the past echoing through the dark corridors. The Bock Casemates in Luxembourg are the remnants of this massive fortress built in 693. Over the centuries, this place changed hands multiple times, and with each new ruler, there was some new flair. But it was the Spanish who really got the ball rolling in 1644 by transforming medieval cellars into fortified firearm emplacements. Then in the 1680s, a French engineer stepped in and supercharged the defenses. The Bock Casemates became a labyrinth of tunnels over 131 feet deep, or 40 meters. The underground had stables, workshops, kitchens, bakeries. The place was impenetrable too. In 1794, it held off against a 7-month siege. By the late 1800s, though, peace needed to be made, so the Treaty of London led to the fortress's demolition. It took 16 years, but in the process they realized that they couldn't tear down the casemates without affecting the city above, so a section of these tunnels are still standing today. Kuldhara village in India may not be an underground city, but it is very old, abandoned, and supposedly cursed. So what happened to this place? Well, legend has it that a tyrannical prime minister named Salim Singh set his sights on the daughter of the village head. She wasn't into him, but he wasn't the kind of guy to take no for an answer, and he threatened the entire village with dire consequences if they didn't give in to his demands, to, I guess, force this woman to marry him. Now, instead of bowing down to this cruel ruler, the people of Kuldhara packed up and they left. And not just a handful of people, 85 villagers worth of people vanished into the desert, never to be seen again. But they did leave something behind. Before they vanished, they placed a curse on the village, declaring that no one would ever be able to settle there again. And today, Kuldhara still stands, but locals warn that anyone who tries to spend the night there may not make it out alive. With all that said, I've been your host, James. I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.